Two sisters, one man, and a destiny sealed by mistake and betrayal. One was loved, the other ignored, but God chose to despise one to fulfill his promise. What seemed like merely a rivalry between sisters concealed a much greater divine purpose. Centuries later, the consequences of this conflict would change the fate of an entire nation. Why was Jacob deceived? What was the true reason behind the exchange of wives? What was the secret that Laban kept? Stay with us until the end, because this is not the story you were told in Sunday school or church. What was seen as betrayal in the eyes of men, God used to fulfill his plan. Night spread over the desert like a cloak of shadows and silence. Jacob, weary from his long journey, looked around for a place to rest. The path had been arduous, and his feet ached with every step. Since fleeing from his brother Esau, he carried a mix of fear and hope in his heart. But now, in that moment, all he wanted was to lay down. He found a stone, placed it as a pillow, and beneath the vast starry sky, he closed his eyes. Sleep soon enveloped him, and then came the dream. He saw a ladder reaching into the heavens, rising majestically as far as his eyes could see. Angels ascended and descended upon it in a constant, harmonious motion, as if following a divine order. Above, a radiant light shone, illuminating everything around. His heart pounded as he heard a deep, powerful yet gentle voice. I am the Lord, the God of Abraham and Isaac. The land on which you now lie, I will give to you and your descendants. I will be with you wherever you go and will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until what I have promised is fulfilled. The impact of those words woke him with a start. The air felt thicker, charged with something sacred. His chest heaved and his heart raced. Sitting up, he looked around. It was still night, and the sky sparkled with thousands of silent stars. But something inside him had changed. This place is sacred, he murmured, rising slowly. God himself was here, and I did not know it. With reverence, he took the stone he had slept on and raised it as a memorial. He poured oil upon it, consecrating that piece of land, now called Bethel, the house of God. There before the invisible, he made a vow. If God is with me on this journey, protects me, gives me bread to eat and clothes to wear, and allows me to return in peace to my Father's house, then the Lord shall be my God. With the first light of dawn, he resumed his journey. His destination was Aram, the land of his uncle Laban. He did not know what awaited him, but his heart was filled with a new certainty. God was with him. The sun climbed the sky as Jacob advanced along the arid path. The heat was intense, and his throat dried quickly. After hours of walking, he finally spotted a well. Nearby, shepherds waited, sitting in the shade of a few trees. The well's mouth was covered by a large stone, and the men seemed to wait for the right moment to remove it together. As he observed the scene, his eyes were drawn to a young woman approaching. She led a flock of sheep, walking gracefully. There was something about her that seemed to shine under the sun. Her dark hair swayed gently in the wind, and her gaze carried a captivating sweetness. Jacob felt his heart pound. He had never seen anyone like her. Who is she? He asked one of the shepherds. Rachel, daughter of Laban, he replied. Rachel. The name sounded like a melody in his thoughts. As she approached, Jacob felt his throat dry, but he did not look away. It was as if time had slowed around them. When their eyes met, an invisible force seemed to connect them. He did not know where he found the strength, but driven by a sudden impulse, he stepped forward and single-handedly removed the stone covering the well. The shepherds looked at him in surprise. Jacob then filled a trough and watered Rachel's sheep, saying nothing. Then, Overcome with emotion, Jacob wept. Rachel watched him with intrigued eyes. Who was this man who had appeared in her life like an unexpected storm? But he did not yet know that this meeting would change his life forever. Jacob remained with Rachel as she led her sheep to the pasture. The silence between them was filled only by the bleating of the animals and the rustling of the wind through the trees. Rachel observed him with curiosity, trying to understand who this foreigner was that displayed such deep emotion upon seeing her. When they arrived at Laban's house, a servant announced their arrival. Laban himself came out to greet him, and upon seeing Jacob, he broke into a wide smile. "You are the son of my sister Rebekah," he exclaimed, embracing him warmly. "You are my own flesh and blood. Come, stay in my house." Jacob recounted his journey. He spoke of Bethel and the dream he had. Laban listened with interest, but his eyes assessed the young man with a shrewd gleam. It was evident that Jacob was strong and hardworking. Someone like him would be useful. Days passed, and Jacob stayed at his uncle's house. From the first morning, he offered to help with the chores, tending the flocks and organizing the pasture. Over time, he became indispensable. Seeing his value, Laban decided to propose a deal. "You are my kin and have worked for me, but you should not serve me for free. Tell me what your wages should be." Jacob did not hesitate. His heart had already made a decision. "I will work 7 years for Rachel, your youngest daughter." Laban raised an eyebrow. Rachel was his prized jewel, the most beautiful of his daughters. But 7 years of hard labor were worth a lot. He smiled. "It is better to give her to you than to another man. Stay with me." The agreement was sealed. Jacob would work for 7 years for Rachel, and at the end of that period, she would become his wife. The days turned into months, the months into years. For Jacob, time seemed to fly as his love for Rachel grew with each sunrise. Her gaze, the sound of her laughter, the way she moved her hands while tending to the sheep. Everything in him longed to have her by his side forever. Then, the 7th year arrived. Jacob approached Laban, his eyes shining with joy and confidence. "The time is fulfilled. Give me my wife now, so that I may be united with her." Laban nodded slowly, but within him, a plan had already been formed. There was something Jacob did not know. The agreement was sealed, but would Laban truly honor it? Jacob's days in Laban's service stretched into weeks, then months, and finally years. From dawn to dusk, he worked tirelessly in the fields, tending the flocks, guiding the sheep to the best pastures, protecting them from predators and the cold of the night. His arms became strong, his skin weathered by the sun. But within him, a single thought sustained him: Rachel. The love he felt for her made every sacrifice light. Even on the harshest days, when the heat of the sun burned his skin and the weight of his labor bent his back, all it took was seeing her in the distance among the sheep for his strength to be renewed. He longed for the day when he would finally take her as his wife, when he could call Rachel his own and build a life by her side. Rachel also held a special affection for Jacob. From the very first day, she had been drawn to his determination and kindness. The years passed, and their closeness grew. It was impossible to hide the fleeting glances, the discreet smiles, the moments when Jacob went out his way to help her with small tasks, even when he didn't need to. But not everyone shared in the joy of this love. Leah, Rachel's older sister, watched everything in silence. While everyone admired Rachel's beauty and grace, few noticed Leah. Her eyes carried a hidden tenderness, yet her fate seemed uncertain. Unlike her younger sister, Leah was not seen as the most beautiful. Her presence was subtle, her voice soft, her gestures always careful not to draw attention. But in her heart, she held a secret. With each passing day, every time she saw Jacob smiling at Rachel, her chest tightened. Time did not erase the silent sorrow growing inside her. She knew that, according to custom, the eldest daughter was supposed to marry before the younger one. But what would happen to her? Would a man ever choose to marry her? Laban was also aware of this tradition, and it troubled him. If Rachel married first, who would accept Leah? No suitor had shown interest in her so far. The prospect of having an unmarried daughter at home for life weighed heavily on him. As the 7 years neared their end, Laban began to devise a plan. His cunning gaze sought a way to secure Leah's future without losing the benefits of Jacob's hard labor. At that time, Jacob barely noticed what was happening around him. His heart was filled only with Rachel and the countdown to the day when he would finally have her as his wife. When the final day of labor arrived, Jacob felt an uncontrollable euphoria. His work was complete. He had fulfilled his part of the agreement, and now it was time to receive his reward. With his heart racing, he stood before Laban. The time is fulfilled. Give me my wife so that I may be united with her. Laban looked at him for a moment, an enigmatic smile on his lips. He nodded slowly and said, "We will hold a great feast to celebrate. Tonight, you shall take your wife." Jacob's heart swelled with joy. The long-awaited day had finally come. But what he did not know was that, while he celebrated, a plan was already in motion. His love for Rachel was strong, but destiny had already been written. As the night of the celebration arrived, the camp of Laban filled with guests, servants, and distant relatives. The wine flowed freely, the torches illuminated the night, and voices rose in songs of joy. For Jacob, it was a fulfillment of everything he had waited for during 7 long years. Rachel had barely been seen during the feast, as tradition dictated. The bride remained in seclusion until the moment she was brought to the groom. Jacob, intoxicated by happiness and the abundance of wine, barely noticed Laban's furtive glances or the knowing expressions on some of the servants' faces. Finally, the time came. The young woman, covered by a thick veil, was brought to him. The torches cast flickering shadows across the scene, and Jacob's excitement was so overwhelming that his heart pounded unevenly. He took his wife's hand, feeling her delicate and hesitant fingers beneath his own. The path to the wedding tent felt like a dream. Jacob was eager to finally have Rachel by his side. After the feast, he united with whom he believed to be his beloved, but at dawn he discovered that it was not Rachel, but her sister Leah. Shocked and furious, he confronted his father-in-law, Laban, who revealed that according to local customs, he could not give the younger daughter in marriage before the eldest. Laban, without remorse, offered him Rachel after a week, but only on condition that Jacob work another 7 years for him. Devastated by the betrayal, Jacob found himself torn between anger and the hope of still winning Rachel's love, while Laban's manipulation shattered his dreams. Jacob held his breath. "If you still want Rachel, there's a solution," said Laban, breaking the silence with a tone of false generosity. "Work for me another 7 years, and she will be your wife as well." Jacob felt his body tense. He had already lost so much time, and now another 7 years with deceitful man. He looked around. The servants watched him with pity. The desert stretched beyond, and Leah's tent, his unwanted wife, stood nearby. Then he saw Rachel, standing apart, almost hidden in morning shadows, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, filled with both hope and fear. She too had been deceived, and now her fate rested in his hands. Jacob closed his eyes. He could run, abandon everything, but that would mean losing Rachel forever, and the thought was unbearable. Love demands sacrifice, he thought. I accept, he said, swallowing his pride. Laban smiled, satisfied. Complete your week with Leah, and then you will have Rachel. But the 7 years must be fulfilled. Jacob felt his anger burning, but he swallowed it like poison. He would do whatever was necessary to have Rachel. Night fell over the camp. Torches illuminated the faces of the guests, and the sound of flutes filled the air with celebration. Jacob was radiant. After 14 years, he would finally take Rachel as his wife. When she approached, veiled, their eyes met. This time, there was no deception. She was the woman he had chosen from the beginning. Laban watched, satisfied for him. It was a game of ambition, with Jacob now bound to his family. The feast lasted long into the night, but from afar, Leah watched in silence, her chest tightening. She knew she had never been desired. She felt humiliated. The next morning, Jacob stepped out of the tent, smiling, feeling complete. But Leah was there, silent, her gaze lowered. He felt discomfort. She was still his wife, even against his will. The days that followed were difficult. Rachel walked with him through the camp with confidence, but inside, she was fragile. She could not conceive. Time passed, and her womb remained empty while Leah bore children. The announcement was striking. The less loved one now carried the firstborn. Jacob was torn. He did not love Leah, but she would be the mother of his son. Leah, in turn, felt both triumph and sorrow. She knew that even so, she would never win Jacob's heart. The camp, once a place of hope, became a battlefield of rivalry. Jacob devoted his love to Rachel, but treated Leah with coldness. Yet despite being despised, Leah remained steadfast, a mother and wife in a home that had never truly been hers. Rachel knew she was loved, but she lived under the shadow of barrenness. Leah, in her silent pain, cried out to God, and he heard her. She conceived another son, Simeon, then Levi, and finally Judah. But with this last child, something changed. Instead of seeking Jacob's approval, Leah said, "This time I will praise the Lord." Her heart found solace in God. As Leah bore sons, Rachel felt humiliated, broken inside. Each new birth was an open wound. One day, overcome with anguish, she confronted Jacob. "Give me children or I will die." He, once patient, exploded. "Am I in the place of God?" Rachel felt exposed. The rivalry between the sisters had become unbearable. Jacob's tents echoed with the laughter of Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah. Leah, though despised, found joy in her children. Rachel, the beloved, carried the burden of silence and frustration. Each of Leah's children was a cruel reminder of her own pain. The glow of being the favorite began to fade. Jacob's home had become a place of tears and faith, of love divided, and a blessing that did not always seem fair. But what did the future still hold for Jacob and his children? If you enjoyed this story, 2 more videos of similar biblical stories will appear on your screen. Click to watch them, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. May God be with you.